This is Don Cash, a billionaire celebrated for his generosity and admired by everyone he met. He built homes for widows, covered school fees for the underprivileged, and became a national icon. But behind the wealth was a dark secret. Don Cash had a pact with evil. He lured innocent girls and sacrificed them to gain more riches. Now he faces his most dangerous mission yet, transforming a homeless virgin girl into a yam for ultimate power. Will he succeed this time, or will the truth finally catch up with him? This is a story of deception, justice, and the power of an innocent voice. So sit back and grab your popcorn. What you're about to witness will shock you. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to never miss another powerful story. In the heart of Lagos, where the wealthy flaunted their riches and the poor dreamed of survival, one man stood above all, Don Cash. He was legendary, not just wealthy. His mansion spanned from Banana Island to Victoria Garden City. His exotic cars paraded through streets like royalty. On social media, he was revered. Men envied him. Women admired him. Children waved at his convoy as if he were a president. People called him the man with the golden touch. Everything he touched turned to gold. He donated to orphanages, paid hospital bills, supported widows, and built schools and villages. To the public, he was every mother's dream of a son-in-law. But behind that generous smile and diamond-studded watch lurked a monster. Not even his wife knew the truth. In their 12-bedroom mansion was a room sealed with 3 layers of iron. No one could enter. Not staff, not security, not even his wife. "It's sacred," he would say, kissing her forehead. "Only I may enter," and she obeyed. Why wouldn't she? He showered her with cars, jewelry, and trips to Dubai every few months. Who questions a man who gives them everything? What no one knew was that Don Cash wasn't just rich, he was bound to the underworld. Every year he sacrificed young women to a mermaid queen, residing in a spiritual realm accessible only through that forbidden room. He lured girls, often homeless, desperate, or jobless, with promises of fame, jobs, or scholarships, then killed them at night and disposed of their bodies along lonely roads. He was meticulous. No CCTV ever caught him. No fingerprints, no trails. Over time, rumors spread about missing girls, typically aged 18 to 30, sometimes found with body parts missing. People suspected cultists or online scammers, but never Don Cash. He was too clean, too powerful, too generous. The hero was never suspected as the villain. It was midnight in Lagos. While the city buzzed with nightlife, the real darkness was beginning somewhere in Ekoi. Inside Don Cash's grand estate, all lights were off except one. A dull blue glow leaked from beneath a heavy black door at the end of the east wing. This door was different, no handle, no lock. Only Don Cash could open it, using a strange ring on his left index finger. Everyone knew the rule: do not approach this door. Security avoided it. Even the mage pretended it didn't exist. His wife, Anita, a woman who had survived his temper before, never questioned it. He claimed the room was a prayer sanctuary, but inside no prayers were offered to God. Don Cash pressed the ring against the door. A low hum began. The metal creaked and slid open like a vault. Barefoot and wearing only a red wrapper, his body glistened with palm oil. Strange chalk symbols marked his chest. The room was dark, lit only by 7 flickering black candles. At the center, a wide basin held water, floating herbs, and a carved idol with glowing eyes. He knelt and spoke in a language no human should know. "Great Queen of the River, I come again." Silence followed. Then the water bubbled, the herbs twisted, and the idol's eyes shone brighter. Her voice echoed deep and feminine as though underwater. "Don Cash, my loyal servant." He bowed. "I have obeyed your last instructions. 4 maidens in 4 months. I seek greater wealth, greater power. My enemies grow. I must stay above them," the voice laughed. "You are always hungry." "I am ready to give more," he said, then listened carefully. The basin swirled violently. Silver mist rose, revealing the shape of a mermaid. Her skin shimmered, her eyes were pitch black, and her long, wet hair flowed like seaweed. "I will open the doors of global riches. Fame will bow before you. Politicians will beg for your favor. But this time I demand something special." Don Cash leaned closer. "Command me, my queen. I want a pure one, a virgin untouched by man. Homeless, innocent, a heart that still believes in kindness. That is the soul I want." Don Cash's throat tightened. Such a girl is rare, but if you find her, your name will be written in fire. Even kings will fear you. The mist vanished, the basin calmed, and the candles dimmed. The voice returned once more. Use the ring I gave you. Touch her forehead. She will become yam. Bring the yam to me, and make sure her voice is not heard. If she speaks, the spell will collapse. The room grew silent. Don Cash leaned back, breathing heavily. A virgin girl, homeless, untouched. He stood, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and left. Passing a mirror in the hallway, his reflection flickered for a moment. His face wasn't his, it looked hollow, gray, sinister. But when he blinked, it vanished. Back in the bedroom, his wife stirred. "Where did you go?" she asked sleepily. He smiled. "Just praying for our family." She nodded and drifted back to sleep. But Don Cash did not. He sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the moonlight sliding through the curtains, already planning how to secure the final sacrifice. Far away, under a broken street lamp near Oalegba Bridge, a girl named Joy huddled under cardboard sheets, clutching her torn schoolbook. She had no idea someone had already marked her. The next morning, Don Cash sat on his balcony with a glass of Zubo, staring blankly at the ocean. The waves no longer calmed him. His mind replayed the Queen Mother's final command. A virgin, homeless, innocent, one who still believes in kindness. He had sacrificed many before. But this was different. Not because of conscience, he had buried that long ago, but because purity was rare. In a world where poverty drove young girls to sell their bodies, finding one untouched and still trusting strangers was like finding gold dust. Yet Don Cash never failed. He hadn't risen from an orphan to one of Nigeria's most envied billionaires by being soft. He picked up his phone and dialed. The voice answered immediately. "Yes, sir. I need a list," Don Cash said coldly. "Girls in Lagos, age 14 to 19. Orphans, street girls still uncorrupted. That may take time, sir. Verification, I said by nightfall. I'm not asking." Understood. Downstairs, his wife Anita was preparing for their annual charity gala. A showpiece for the elite. "I'll be heading to the mainland later today," Don Cash announced as he passed her. "For what?" she asked. "To inspect a real estate project in Surulere. I thought your team handled that. This one needs me." She returned to her guest list, unaware her husband was preparing for a ritual hunt. Later that day, Don Cash drove himself, rare for him. He wore old clothes, no Rolex, no rings, nothing that might reveal him. He parked near Oho Bridge, a place full of homeless children, beggars, and hawkers. From his tinted window, he studied them. Then he saw her, sitting by a rusted container, head buried in an old book. Her hair was rough, her face delicate. She didn't beg, she didn't smoke, she didn't look broken. Just lost, no older than 16. He stepped out. "Hello, little one," he said softly. She looked up, startled but polite. "Good evening, sir. Why are you alone here?" "My parents died in an accident last year. I used to go to school, but now I live on the streets," she said gently. Her innocence cut through the noise around them. Don Cash smiled. "What's your name?" "Joy, a beautiful name." "You remind me of my daughter. May her soul rest." "I'm sorry for your loss, sir," he nodded. "Would you like to return to school? Eat proper food? Sleep in a real bed?" Her eyes lit up. "Yes, sir. More than anything, then come with me. I'll help you." She hesitated. "Can I trust you?" He placed his hand on her shoulder. "I help many girls. I even built a home for widows in Orodu. I'm a businessman, not a monster." The word monster chilled his throat, but she believed him. Smiling, she agreed. As they walked to his car, his fingers tightened around the enchanted ring in his pocket. The Queen Mother's gift. His key to wealth and power. Above them, the sky darkened unexpectedly, though forecasts had promised sunshine. A silent bolt of lightning cut across the sky. Somewhere in the spiritual realm, the Queen Mother was watching. Joy hadn't been inside a car in over a year. As she sank into the black SUV's leather seat, it felt like stepping into a dream. The scent of vanilla and polished leather filled her senses. "Seatbelt," Don Cash said kindly. "Safety first." She obeyed, nervous but hopeful. "I'll take you home. You'll eat, rest, and tomorrow I'll get you cleaned up and back in school." "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I've prayed for this for months." Don Cash smiled, though behind his sunglasses his eyes were cold. Joy held her tattered schoolbook tightly, as if it could shield her. She had carried it through rain and sun, believing one day she'd read it again in a classroom. "Where are we going?" she asked as the city noise faded. Somewhere peaceful, he said. A place where no one will disturb you. God bless you, sir. You're a good man. His jaw tightened. The words scraped at his soul, but he dismissed them. He had done this before. Still, this time felt different. They drove down a lonely road bordered by dark trees. Joy stared out of the window. It's so quiet here. It was calm, just as he had promised. Slowing the car, he turned onto a narrow hidden path, one he knew well. It led to a deserted clearing he had used before. A perfect place, he said, parking the car. The air was still. Come, he called. Joy stepped out, her sandals crunching against dry leaves. Is this the house? She asked. No, he replied carefully, reaching into his pocket for the ring. I just want to show you something. Joy glanced around. The trees swayed softly, and a flock of birds rose into the air. Something felt unsettling. She turned to him. Sir? Don Cash didn't answer. His face was blank, the warmth gone. He stepped closer and pressed the enchanted ring against her forehead. A sudden flash of blue light burst from the ring, striking her skin. Joy gasped. Her body froze, her mouth open but silent. Then, gone. In her place on the ground was a large, smooth yam. Don Cash exhaled slowly. The Queen Mother's instructions had been precise, and her power had once again delivered. He picked up the yam and placed it carefully into a black cloth bag, tying it shut like treasure. As he returned to the car, something unexpected happened. The engine refused to start. He tried again. Nothing. Cursing, he stepped out, opened the bonnet, and checked everything he could. Still dead. Frustrated, he called for a taxi. Within 20 minutes, a Toyota Corolla arrived. The driver, a middle-aged man with tribal marks on his cheeks, eyed him with suspicion. Where you dey go, Olga? Mainland? Don Cash replied, carrying the bag into the back seat. I'll pay double. No wahala, the driver said, pulling away. But as they drove, the atmosphere shifted. It began with a faint whisper. Help. The driver glanced into the mirror. Sir, did you talk? No, Don Cash replied sharply. Why? I swear I hear small Pekin voice say help. You're imagining things. Just drive. Silence. Then louder this time. Please help me. The driver slammed the brakes. Olga, you hear that one? Don Cash's face paled. I'll pay you 5,000, just drive. The driver hesitated. 5,000 was tempting, but unease lingered. Soon they reached a police checkpoint at Berger. 2 armed officers waved them down. Good evening, the driver greeted. I just drop Olga for mainland. As they prepared to wave them through, a cry came from the bag. Louder this time, please help me. Don't let him kill me. The officers froze. The driver's hands shook. One officer stepped back. Wait, who talked that thing? The yam screamed again from inside the bag. It's me, I'm not a yam. He turned me into this. Inside that bag? The officer shouted, lifting his gun. It's just food, Don Cash stammered. I'm a farmer. Exotic yam, shut up. The officers barked, dragging the bag from the car. It hit the ground with a heavy thud. The yam's voice cried again, raw and desperate. The crowd began to gather, watching in disbelief. Don Cash fell to his knees. I'll pay you. Any amount. 10 million each. Just let me go. But the officers ignored him. Call headquarters. This one past checkpoint matter. The yam wailed, trembling on the dusty road as if breathing. A woman screamed, blood of Jesus. An officer leaned closer, his hand shaking. The yam cried out, he did this to me. The driver whispered, I tell Una. I hear her voice since we enter car. Don Cash stood trembling, sweat soaking through his shirt. He forced a weak smile. Gentlemen, this is a prank, technology. I'm a businessman. I make TikTok pranks. Prank? One officer snapped. Inside yam? Bring everything to the station, the senior officer ordered. Desperate, Don Cash pulled out a fat envelope of cash. 5 million, take it. No one has to know. The yam went silent. Then, slap. The officer knocked the money from his hand. So you think everyone has a price? You won't escape this. The younger officer cuffed him. You're under arrest for suspicion of murder, kidnapping, and use of black magic. You have the right to remain silent, Don Cash protested. There's no body. I didn't kill anyone. The yam cried again. He turned me into this. His name is Don Cash. He promised to help me. The crowd gasped. Phones came out. Recordings began. Within minutes, the story went viral. Crying yam. Don Cash arrested. At the police station, reporters swarmed the gates chanting, "Bring out the yam." "Let her speak." Inside, the commissioner of police stared at the tuber lying in the evidence room, still weeping softly. "Get me the inspector general," he ordered. This is no ordinary case. This was no longer just a crime. It had become something spiritual. Inside the interrogation room, Don Cash sat with his head bowed, his hands cuffed to the steel table. He had already offered everything, money, properties, cars, to the DPO, the arresting officers, even the janitor. No one accepted. The power he once held had vanished. The fear he inspired had dissolved under something far darker. People were not only angry, they were afraid. Here was a billionaire known for helping the poor, accused of turning girls into yams, and these yams spoke. They cried. They called out names and begged for justice. This was no longer just a scandal. It was a national nightmare. In the evidence room, the yam kept sobbing. Sergeant Kioma watched in disbelief, her heart racing as she stepped closer. "Can you hear me?" she asked. "Yes," came the faint reply. "What's your name?" "Joy, my name is Joy." Kioma drew in a shaky breath. "How old are you, Joy?" 16. Tears filled Kioma's eyes. "Who did this to you?" "Don Cash. He found me under Ohaleba Bridge. He said he would help me. He touched my forehead with a ring. Then everything went dark." Kioma stepped back, her legs weak. She turned to her superior, who had just entered the room. "Sir," she whispered, voice trembling, "this girl is real." The officer nodded grimly. "We've called a spiritual advisor. He's on his way." Outside the station, the crowd had swelled into hundreds. Protesters carried signs, "Justice for Jick and end ritual killings. Expose the rich." In his cell, Don Cash sat shaking. His once impeccable clothes were wrinkled and stained. The ring, the source of his power, had been confiscated. He stared at his palms and muttered, "How did this happen? How did I lose control?" Then deep within his thoughts, a voice spoke. "Not Joy, the Queen Mother. You failed me." His eyes widened. "You let her speak. You let them hear. You have broken our covenant." "No," he whispered. "No, I gave you blood. I gave you youth. You will be forgotten." Silence. Don Cash screamed, punching the wall with his cuffed hands. No one came. He was no longer untouchable. He was a prisoner. Meanwhile, in the evidence room, the yam kept crying. "Help me, please, I just want to go home." The voice was softer now. Exhausted but still unmistakably human, Sergeant Kioma sat trembling at the table. In 12 years of service, she had seen murder, fraud, cult killings, but nothing like this. A tuber of yam with a child's voice naming her abuser. This wasn't a police case anymore. This was spiritual warfare. By noon, the commissioner of police, senior officers, and a government-appointed prophet gathered in the room where the yam lay on a velvet cloth. The prophet, an old man with a white beard dressed in flowing white, raised his staff. "This child has been bound spiritually," he declared, "through dark marine rituals. If we delay, her soul may be lost forever." The commissioner nodded. "Can she be restored?" "Yes," the prophet replied. "But the ring must touch her again. The same ring used to transform her. Only it can reverse the curse." The room went silent. One officer cleared his throat. "Sir, we have the ring. It was seized during the arrest." "Good," said the prophet. "Then bring the man who wore it. Bring Don Cash." In the holding cell, Don Cash was no longer the man the world admired. His face was pale, lips dry, voice cracked. National disgrace weighed on him. He had called his lawyer, his political allies, even the governor he once bribed. No one answered. He had become untouchable in a different way. When the door creaked open and 4 armed men entered, he did not resist. He did not speak. He only lowered his head. They led him to the evidence room where the prophet stood beside the still weeping yam. Cameramen were present. The Minister of Women Affairs had arrived. Media personnel crowded behind the glass. This was no longer a case, it was a public reckoning. "Don Cash," the prophet said firmly, "touch the yam with the same ring you used." Don Cash looked up slowly, his eyes meeting the yam. The crying, the guilt had gripped his throat. I can't." The commissioner stepped forward. "If you refuse, you'll be charged with murder, child trafficking, and occult practices. You will never see daylight again." Don Cash closed his eyes. His hand trembled as he reached for the ring in the evidence tray. It felt colder than ever, like a snake ready to strike. He stepped forward and placed it gently on top of the yam. A flash of blue light burst through the room. Everyone gasped. The yam began to spin. A strong wind swept across, scattering files and chairs. The prophet gripped his staff. Lights flickered. The ground shook faintly. Then silence. When the light faded, Joy lay on the table, unconscious but breathing. Human again. She looked fragile, still wearing the red blouse and blue skirt she had on when Don Cash took her. Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed. A reporter shouted, "She's alive!" Another burst into tears. Even the police officers froze. Sergeant Kioma covered her mouth, sobbing. The minister stepped forward, gently holding Joy's hand. "She's just a child." Joy's eyes fluttered open. She looked around, confused. Her voice cracked. "Where am I?" "You're safe now," Kioma whispered. "You're free." Then Joy saw him. Don Cash. She recoiled instantly, trembling. "Him. That's him. He promised to help me. He turned me into a yam." Her voice echoed across the room. Officers seized Don Cash before he could move, but he didn't run. He didn't fight. He collapsed to the floor, wailing. "I didn't want to do it," he cried. "They promised me power. The Queen Mother once promised I would be remembered forever. I thought I had no choice but to follow her words. Yet when the prophet raised his staff, he reminded me, you did have a choice. You chose blood over compassion, greed over grace." Don Cash struck the floor in anger. "I gave money to the poor. I built orphanages. I did good deeds." The commissioner's voice was firm. "You used good works to hide your crimes. Your time is finished." Joy looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "You could have saved me, but instead you destroyed me." Reporters recorded every word. Within minutes, headlines flooded every channel, blog, and social feed. Billionaire Don Cash confesses to ritual killing. Homeless girl turned to yam rescued. Nigeria in shock as Don Cash breaks down during confession. Protests erupted across the country. Youth groups demanded justice for missing girls. Parents wept for daughters who never returned. Every journalist in Lagos wanted an exclusive. And at the heart of it all stood Joy, once homeless under a bridge, now the symbol of survival and justice. In her hospital room, wrapped in a blanket, she scanned the white walls as though unsure if this was real or another dream. Only 48 hours had passed since her transformation from yam back to human. But for Joy it felt like weeks. She was no longer invisible, no longer a forgotten face in the crowd. She was now Nigeria's most famous survivor. Nurses peered through the glass just to see her. Reporters camped outside the hospital. The world wanted her voice, but Joy wanted silence. Her hand shook as she lifted water to her lips. Her sleep was restless. The memory of Don Cash's face and the cursed ring haunted her. Yet she was alive, and that itself was a miracle. A knock came at the door. "Joy, may we come in?" asked a gentle voice. Sergeant Key entered with a woman in royal blue lace, elegant, warm, full of kindness. "Joy, this is Mrs. Evelyn Bello, First Lady of Lagos State. She's been following your story closely." Joy sat up quickly. "Good afternoon, Ma." Mrs. Bello smiled and approached. "My dear, you are extraordinarily brave. What happened to you was evil, but your survival is proof that God does not forget the innocent." Joy lowered her gaze, overwhelmed. "I thought I would die. I thought no one would ever hear me." The First Lady held her hand gently. "But the world has heard you, and now we want your life to change for the better. My husband, the governor, and I want to adopt you into our family." Joy's eyes widened. "What?" she whispered. Mrs. Bello continued. "We have no daughters, only sons. But the moment I saw you on TV, I knew in my heart, you are the daughter I've been waiting for." Sergeant Kai wiped tears from her eyes as Joy stared, stunned. You want to take care of me?" "Not just care for you," Mrs. Bello said, embracing her. "You will go back to school. You will have your own room, your own bed. You will never beg again. You will be safe, loved, and empowered." Joy broke down in sobs of gratitude. 3 days later, a national press conference was held in Abuja, broadcast live. The hall was filled with governors, senators, activists, religious leaders, and school children holding signs. "We stand with Joy. Protect our daughters. End ritual killings." Joy walked to the podium in a purple gown, her braided hair shining. Her voice was soft, but silence swept the room. "My name is Joy. I once lived under Obalende Bridge. I believed no one could ever see me." She paused, her voice trembling. But today the whole world is watching. I stand here not because I am better than the girls who disappeared, but because I was lucky to survive. Flashes lit the hall. She continued, I want justice for every girl who never returned. For those who were promised help but found death instead. I want leaders to stop shielding corrupt men with money. The hall erupted in applause. Even the president, seated in front, nodded in agreement. Joy was no longer just a survivor. She had become a voice, a symbol, a call to action. Meanwhile, inside Kirikiri Maximum Prison, Don Cash sat alone. Sentenced to 30 years without parole, his assets seized, his friends gone, his wife filing for divorce, everything had vanished. No more designer suits, no private jets, no praise. Now he wore a brown prison uniform, just another inmate. Yet even other prisoners feared him. They whispered, that's the man who turned a girl into yam. He ate alone, slept alone, and cried at night, for no spirits answered him. The Queen Mother had abandoned him, and he was nothing. Outside, Nigeria was shifting. Lawmakers introduced bills against ritual exploitation and fraudulent spiritual practices. Human rights groups demanded tougher penalties. Radio stations called on religious leaders to speak against greed and corruption. Through it all, Joy quietly adjusted to her new life with the Bello family. She had a warm bed, clean clothes, private tutors, but most importantly, hope. One evening, sitting on the balcony of the governor's mansion, she asked Mrs. Bello, do you think people will forget? The First Lady smiled. They may forget the noise, but they will never forget your courage. Joy nodded. I want to help girls like me someday. And you will, Mrs. Bello assured her. Your life is now a testimony, a reminder, a weapon against evil. Looking at the sky she once saw from beneath a broken bridge, Joy whispered, thank you, God, for not letting me disappear. 6 months later, Nigeria was not the same. Churches preached against ritual killings. Schools held forums on protecting vulnerable children. Media produced documentaries exposing missing girls and corrupt leaders. And at the center of this movement was one name, Joy, the girl who survived the unimaginable. The girl once turned into a yam, who now spoke for a nation. In Abuja's National Unity Hall, the president, ministers, governors, and first ladies gathered. International cameras flashed. It was the National Heroes Recognition Ceremony, and the award that drew the nation's eyes was the Bravery Medal of Light. A tall officer in military uniform stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate not a soldier, not a politician, not a celebrity, but a young girl who turned pain into victory. The crowd rose to its feet. Applause filled the hall. Guided by 2 guards, Joyce stepped into the light. She wore a white gown that sparkled, her braided hair shining beneath the stage lights. Her steps were steady and strong. Her eyes searched the room, the same place that once ignored girls like her, now standing in her honor. At the side of the stage, the president placed a golden medal around her neck. I once believed I didn't matter, she said into the microphone. I was just a girl on the street reading books no one cared about. But the day evil came for me, I discovered something powerful. Even the smallest voice can shake an empire. The hall erupted in applause once more. Backstage, Mrs. Bello wiped away tears. Sergeant Key stood nearby, clapping proudly. Meanwhile, inside Kenken Maximum Prison, Don Cash sat cross-legged in the chapel. He was thinner, pale, forgotten. Guards barely noticed him. Fellow inmates mocked him with whispers. Baba Ritual, Yam Master, fallen billionaire. He stayed silent. His cell was nothing more than a coffin of regret. Each night he saw the Queen Mother's furious face hissing, you let her speak. You let them hear. He always woke screaming, but today was different. This was not judgment from spirits, but from the Nigerian justice system. A courtroom inside the prison delivered final sentencing for his crimes. As his case grew, 7 more families came forward. 7 missing daughters, all linked to him through digital records and evidence found in his secret chambers. The judge declared, I hereby sentence Donald Okafor, also known as Don Cash, to life imprisonment for the kidnapping, attempted murder, and ritual abuse of 8 Nigerian girls, including minor Joy. The courtroom went silent. Then came the final blow. Furthermore, all assets belonging to Mr. Okafor shall be auctioned, and 70% of the proceeds will fund a national program to protect and rehabilitate homeless children and survivors of abuse. It was finished. Don Cash bowed his head. He had built empires, but now would die nameless in chains. Across the country, hope rippled through communities. In Makoko, under the same bridge where Joy once slept, a new shelter stood, the Joy Udo Foundation Home for Street Girls. Every bed carried her name. Every girl who entered was taught her story, the girl who once lived among them and rose again. Joy often visited, sitting with the girls, playing, reading stories, not as a celebrity, not as a national icon, but as someone who truly understood. Some people only survive, she once told them. But you were born to shine. Don't let the streets define your future. On December 24th, Joy sat with the Bello family on the balcony of the governor's mansion, sipping juice as Christmas lights glowed and fireworks lit the sky. Mrs. Bello touched her shoulder. "How do you feel?" Joy smiled. "Peaceful." "You've made the world listen, Joy. I hope you know that," Mrs. Bello said warmly. Joy nodded. "I do, but I'm not done yet." "Oh?" Mrs. Bello asked. "I want to study law," Joy said. The older woman's face lit with pride. "Law? Yes, not to get rich, but to fight. To protect girls like me. To make sure no one ever silences a child again." Mrs. Bello wiped a tear. "Then that will be our mission." They raised their glasses together. As the final hours of the year faded, the nation watched one last viral clip, a documentary titled "The Girl Who Came Back." It ended with these words: "In a world where greed hides behind power, one voice rose from the dust. One girl once homeless became hope for millions. Her name was Joy, and she reminded us that light will always defeat darkness." Moral of the story: evil may hide behind wealth and charm, but no darkness can silence truth forever. The cries of the innocent will always be heard. Justice, though delayed, will arrive. True power lies not in money or status, but in compassion, integrity, and the courage to resist evil. Even a forgotten child like a homeless girl can become a voice that transforms a nation. Thank you for watching this powerful story. We hope it touched your heart and left you with something meaningful. Now it's your turn. What lesson did you take from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And remember, another inspiring and educational story is coming in just a few days. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. If this story moved you, please like and share it with your family and friends. Thank you again for watching, and God bless you.